Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, here in Silicon Valley at 11th Cloud Expo, second International Big Data Expo, and it's the big data area we're going to be looking at, along with a little bit of cloud there as well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening if you're watching this extraordinarily large panel out there on the World Wide Web via SYS-CON TV. Gentlemen, we made it to day 4, but did big data make it to day 4? We've had lots of sort of questions about, did it start in Stone Age times? We had references to medieval technology on earlier panels, so we're expecting a pretty historical take, which is strange because our first panelist is Treb Ryan, who is barely older than whatever. Treb, introduce yourself, please, sir, and let's hear why you would be here on a big data panel.
My name's Treb Ryan. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for Dimension Data. As Cloud Business Unit, I also run our public cloud offering for Dimension Data. And why am I on the panel?
Well, just
we have a number of clients using big data who are underlying big data aspects and have spent quite a bit of time on how that can work with the cloud. So I guess I'm here to talk about that.
Yeah, it's just in case the audience think that the credentials are bogus. We just want to try it out. Brian.
Thanks, Jeremy. Brian Donaghy, I'm the CEO of Appcore, and Appcore automates the business of cloud computing. We manufacture a local cloud infrastructure for data centers and telcos to deliver public cloud, as well as enterprises to deliver private cloud, all the way from the architecture, the automation, the administration, and the app store. And a couple of the trends that we're seeing include local cloud infrastructure and the business consumerization of IT. And that's where big data comes in, is that you're collecting it locally, you're processing it locally, and that's the infrastructure that we deliver.
Makes sense to me. Jay.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Jay Jarrell. I'm the President and CEO of Objectivity. We are a big data database company, and we have two database products that enable big data applications, whether it be in cloud or out of the cloud, tied into machines or publicly deployed. The two products we have is the Big Data Connection Platform. It brings many different data types together in real time, helps mix the data types and write applications to that in a real-time environment. The other one is our exciting new NoSQL product. It's a distributed graph database product that does enable big data analytics that takes data from Hadoop, SQL stores, column stores, any type of stores, and brings that together in an analytic platform.
Okay, there's the objectivity pitch. That's the last he'll get to say about that. Rags.
Hi, I'm Srinivasan, Director of Product Management at Symantec. I manage the big data line of products. So we recently launched a Symantec enterprise solution for Hadoop. So we want to make Hadoop usable in enterprise. Most importantly, use with the infrastructure that you already have, instead of investing in new infrastructure.
Very, very good, Aaron.
Hollobaugh. I'm responsible for marketing and cloud strategy at Hostway Corporation. We're here primarily because we have a lot of our customers in the fast growth SMBs that are social media companies and also SaaS providers that are either using big data to take their ideation to market, or they're also offering big data services on top of our infrastructure services that we offer.
Praveen.
My name is Praveen Kankariya. I'm with Impetus Technologies, and we're the leader in big data and cloud computing services. And I'm the only panelist who represents a services company here. We work with Tier 1 Fortune 500 corporations and are helping them deal with big data as they're trying to find their way. And we cut across so many different use cases, and it's great to be here. We have met so many people who are trying to solve different problems with big data.
Well, we'll explore some of those use cases in the next few minutes, I am certain. Question for you first. So big data has caught everybody's imagination. I don't know whether that's just the words or it is the data, but I ran into I'm always curious when somebody from NASA speaks on these things, because we know that NASA's one of those. We had Chris here, Chris Kemp, and I'm thinking, wow, they have access to a lot of data. But here's a curious one. The CIO of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, right? I mean, he must know whereof he speaks. Said, terribly easy, he's called Adrian Garden, he said, companies will have to morph for big data. I like that. So that got my attention. Companies will have to morph for big data. Made perfect sense. But here's what he then said. The companies that flow with information will survive, but we're going to be overwhelmed. I thought, my God, the CIO of NASA says we're going to be overwhelmed. Anyway, I just want to put it to you, this is a free-for-all. Are we going to be overwhelmed? I thought it was all going to be a good thing, this big data. Treb?
Yeah.
You don't look overwhelmed.
I didn't say, are we going to be overwhelmed? We already are overwhelmed.
Right.
You know, we come into these big data discussions, and everybody talks about when you take data at an internet scale and you start gleaning information from it, how powerful that can be and how you can change your business and transform it, and look at what these companies out there on the internet basis have done with the internet, this internet scale problem, and what big data can solve for them. And then you ask the next question, so how do you do it? And everybody looks at you and goes, I have no idea. I mean, there isn't 10, maybe 20 now, guys in the entire valley who can truly deal with internet scale data, know how to put the systems together. And when they do, it's very specific applications like Splunk and the like. General purpose big data capabilities are so hard and so difficult to implement now that no one really knows what's the right one to put it into. Do I use Hadoop? Do I use a NoSQL database? Do I use Cassandra? How am I going to structure the data? You know, we all very much think in terms of SQL and relational databases, which is an entirely different aspect. And it reminds me a lot of 95, 96, when web first came out. It was a static environment. And someone said, wouldn't it be great if we could make this interactive and we could do shopping carts and things like that instead of just putting up pictures? And to do that, we had to have these web applications start talking to databases. And if you could do that, if you could make that web application talk to a database, you could make unlimited sums of money at that point in time. I mean, everybody, just writing a simple shopping cart made you a god in the valley. And it took years of tools and development now to the point where anybody who can pick up Visual Studio or Ruby on Rails can write an interactive application. It's really not that difficult to do. We're in those stages with big data.
Years and years away.
Well, the tools are just beginning to come out, right? And we heard two people already on the panel saying we have tools that allow you to use big data, but boy, they are very early on. Yeah, and the knowledge set is this big, and we could get into more depth, but I'll let everybody talk about it.
I would concur with that. You know, the data points that we collect now, especially if you think about infrastructure, I mean, our customers manage not only their local infrastructure, but clouds that are across global endpoints. And so we collect data all the way down to CPU utilization by the second. And all of that comes up together. And so you have to create new tools to analyze that information, to glean the wisdom from the knowledge that you're collecting. And so I definitely concur with that.
I disagree a little bit. We've been in big data before big data was popular. We've been a NoSQL company which enables big data for over 20 years. And we have some new products in this exciting new market. This market is exciting for business purposes because it's going to go from 5 billion a year, big data, and we're talking about servers, storage, the services, as well as the software that's going to be used in a polyglot persistent strategy, which means it's a complementary approach of taking SQL databases, you're taking unstructured non-SQL databases, and you combine them as a complementary strategy to answer these new problems in real time for high-end analytic applications. So I disagree to some degree that it's not all new. You're using different tools for the right part of the job in a complementary systems of systems way. And this is being done today because our largest customers are the government. So I really agree with you. NASA and our agencies, as well as our military and our civic government, they're trying to mix all these different data types in real time. So they're drowning in data and thirsting for answers. And new tools like our tools and other tools are helping enable that.
Okay, just to reprise that slogan, drowning in data, thirsting for answers, go to objective. I didn't even say that. Ranks.
So let me add to that. I mean, in terms of data sources, yes, it is increasing. In terms of volume of data, we see so much of it. But do all this data make sense to make any decisions? The prevalent thinking about big data is, I don't know what this data contains. Let me not throw away anything. Storage is cheap. let me throw in every source of data. Let me run some analytics, let the data scientists loose on it. They might find something of value in there. That actually, what we see is come to define the big data. But for that, I say 2 words, Nate Silver. Like last night, or previous night, you saw his model didn't use Hadoop or big data. He really went for relevant data. What is state-by-state data? What are the local politics? And be able to build a relevant model that gave very excellent predictions. So big data shouldn't be about, let me just throw in everything and try to do it. It still has to be, there are new sets of tools that's available for me to run new types of analysis, but let me still start with what is it I'm trying to solve and go from there.
But even so, the point of keeping it doesn't go away. So there is some logic to keeping it. If finally, we don't throw away oil just because we can't quite extract it, right? We mark on the map where it is and we return, no?
Well, if you start keeping it, then you need to worry about your retention policies. If you're a large enterprise customer, those things come into play where do I need to retain this for 7 years for regulatory concerns? And what type of data, which kind of storage I need to use and all those things.
But Symantec can make a fortune from that. So this is a great thing. Aaron.
Same thing. We love that companies may be overwhelmed by data collection, storage, and analytics. So it's more for us to grow in the infrastructure. Absolutely. But I would say, too, though, on a broader business scale, I don't think that businesses are going to be overwhelmed. I think that large bureaucracies and large companies like a NASA, for example, that is used to a business model that follows a idea to instinct to execution approach, or just following the status quo, is going to be overwhelmed. I think there's a new wave of companies, a new wave of leaders that are data-driven in themselves, and as a result of that, they're using data to create their idea in the first place. Then they're using data to validate their instinct, and then they're executing upon whatever their corporate strategy is or whatever their company strategy is, and then they use data again to use that to improve upon it. So I don't think that the smaller companies, and I don't think that the companies that are embracing leadership that is data-driven are going to be overwhelmed. I think rather than overwhelmed, their success is going to be hyper-accelerated as a result of
hyper-accelerated. Now we're getting more right. Praveen.
So, there's this old premise that you should make an informed decision. So it's all about making informed decisions. And this has always been true. I think what is enabling now, and I feel it's a continuum, the hype makes it disruptive, but truly what has really happened is cost of storage has gone down, as you said, and there's been a confluence of factors which has made dealing with data cheaper. And it's only becoming cheaper day by day. It's not that doing big data is inexpensive today, but it's not as expensive as some years ago. And I think every corporation, it behooves that they draw insights and make informed decisions. Now, Google has to do this. I mean, this is the core of their business model. And there are other companies, they can take their time to react, and it all depends on their competitive situation.
All right. Well, now look, one of the things we've learned in the, in Cloud Expo and in the technology conference business anyway is trying to help the audience understand the drivers is always a positive thing. So I want to come at that slightly strangely and say, if it came from the top or if it came from the bottom, it would take a certain course. What if it just came from the idea that we now have every company a chief analytics officer? I mean, is that going to suddenly seem extraordinarily necessary? Like when you used to have a chief sustainability officer. You just suddenly had to appoint one because that was what was the thing to do. Would you like to be Treb would like to be one.
We didn't even have the term data scientist until what? Right. A year ago, and this gets back to my issue. Great, have a chief analytics officer. If you can find one, that might know, who might not
any
say...
Any CAOs out there.
Who, by the way, who might sit there and say, I want to go work for a big company, as opposed to, hey, I can go take this and create the next Splunk and get a $2 billion valuation off of it. Because that's how valuable that capability is today. Is that if you can apply that type of, even to the simplest thing of reading log data, if you can apply the ability to actually execute and glean information on the simplest of items, it's huge value. It's the shopping cart again from 15 years ago. So while the idea might, let's have a chief analytics officer, sounds just fantastic, I challenge anybody who can actually, remember, it's not just storing the data or even analyzing the data once we have that out there. It's how does the data actually get reported back? I mean, you have to understand there's just a whole different concept people don't have. And I read stories about how someone did something or another where you realize it's complete BS because it wouldn't even work technically. Oh, we put Hadoop up on Amazon. Listen, Hadoop was designed on fast sequential read access to disk, and I hate to get wonky, but that's what's throwing this stuff down. You know, that's what causes this a problem. Amazon and ourselves, cloud is inherently bad at fast sequential read access to disk. Yet somehow someone said they made this and made all this money knowing that it didn't work. And you know, and if you ask someone like Cloudera, who charges $1 million to give you the answer to this thing, because they actually do know what they're doing often the time, they'll tell you that didn't work. And that's where we are. And I think it's beholden when you ask someone about big data. You can't just say, what will be the great outcomes of my business when I understand this data? It has got to be, how are you going to get this data into an understandable form for me so we can get these great outcomes of the business? This is still much more a how than how great the end result. Having a chief analytics officer is only good if he can tell you how you will actually process this big data set and give you an answer that you can use.
So to summarize, if somebody applied to you to be the CAO, you would immediately not hire them, because what fool would lend all that?
Well, I'll take my word for it.
You?
We are looking all day long to try to figure out, you know, we do stuff online. We get all those web scale answers, and we're trying to figure out the answers for those. And Lord knows I would ask how they intend on taking the data we get and giving it back so we can get usable answers out of it, much more than can you tell me what answers I'm looking for or how to look at it. We know that.
Right.
We just said, I want to know, if I got all this data in there, how am I going to extract, what is the physical coming off the spindling disk into some sort of graph that's going to help me understand my business? How does the function happen? Because it's so complicated right now.
A how guy? Is that what we need, Praveen?
Yes.
I mean, you consult with people. You are a kind of how guy.
The biggest challenge we're seeing our customers who are very large companies, hundreds of times larger than us, and the biggest problem they're facing is making sure their business people who are actually running the business can understand the analysis. You know, whatever an analytics system is recommending, can it be bought in by the people on the ground? That's the biggest challenge.
Do you agree with that, Jay?
Yeah, to a large degree. You have to know what problem you are solving top down. So we go back to the use cases that we add value to in terms of finding relationships, connections, links, and patterns in a real-time distributed setting with mixed data types, whether it be relational data, structured data, unstructured. That's a very complex system that Brian and some of the other gentlemen here are mentioning to solve, but you have to know what you're trying to solve. For example, if you're building a recommendation engine for a telco carrier who's trying to monetize from real-time geolocation data of those smartphones in the network, and you're trying to serve up the right ad to the right smartphone at the right time, that is a big data problem. Okay? Now, have all these been fully deployed? Absolutely not. We're at the beginning, as you say, of solving the next exciting thing that's going to go on. Retail shopping, real time, when you walk into a retailer's, they'll know who you are, they'll know what you like, they'll know the patterns. That is coming. But that's big data mixed with cloud infrastructure or non-cloud infrastructure to solve those very tough, computationally intensive problems in real time. We're a part of that, and there are those problems being solved today that we've helped in the government. So I did like your NASA use case. We're doing that with the agencies who are usually a little bit bleeding edge. And we're talking about not like terabytes of data. We're talking about, you know, petabytes, exabytes. They're drowning in data, and there's, you know, SIGINT data coming off of satellite systems, JPEG information, mixing that with human data. Those things are going on today. And those are the kinds of usage patterns that will spill out into commercial. And that's where the commercial vendors, like you see at this panel, $5 billion today, $50 billion in 2017. We're going to sell a lot of gear to help solve those problems. And it's exciting.
This is where I disagree, though, in that, oh, we're doing this today. Yeah, sure we are. think about the most sophisticated companies who deal more with this internet scale data than anything. Facebook, the advertising networks and the like. All of that information on supposedly these fantastic solutions, all are finding out that my various cloud-related browsing, sports score-related browsing and stuff means that what I really want and need is one simple trick to lower my car insurance. It's the same ad everybody else gets every single time. The discussion that we've all had this great thing, everybody gets the same ads and they're completely irrelevant. They have not figured this out. And it's not because we don't know it's valuable to figure it out, but because and partly I'll agree there's a buy side of what you can sell, but partly we have not been able to actually solve the problem, at least not well enough to get anybody to put some money behind it, even for the companies that are supposedly the big data experts, much less someone who is at a subscale who is looking to use internet scale to solve some interesting problem within their business. And that's a little over, and so when I hear, oh, we created these great things, no, we haven't. The ad serving is horrible. It's worse than it was 5 years ago. It's basically a bunch of junk out there. We have gotten worse at figuring out what I want when I want to buy on there, except for the fact that, for me, I do get a lot of Rackspace ads. A lot of Rackspace ads. On some of the most interesting sites, too. It's really interesting how that works.
May I respond? I don't think I was mentioning that we're there today. We are on our way. We're at the start.
When was your 50 billion coming? 2017?
2017.
Where did these numbers come from?
IDS or
yeah,
all
exactly.
the guys that I'm paying. So, but here's the thing. There are some use cases, our customers that are trying to solve these problems. So then I agree with you. The ad networking, the ad server companies, they're just blasting out impressions, billions and billions of impressions. But the new ad networks and ad agencies of tomorrow are the telco carriers that own the network. And they're going to figure it out.
Right, we're at work for telecom? No, we're not.
Well,
no, we're not. And I've always worked for telecoms.
You might be
working
for the wrong telco.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are.
I think a general takeaway with big data is that these are just good problems to solve. I mean, in business, we've always looked for more information, more analytics to actually make decisions on. And now we've kind of solved the way to pull the information in. And what we're talking about up here is now what do we do with the information? And as we look at that, I mean, we've come through this process of actually being able to now collect information across our cloud infrastructure. We collect massive amounts of machine information, all the way down to the heat of the RAM coming off of our machines. And we collect all of that, and now we have to do something with it. And so that's, I think, maybe part B of big data is now we're at the trending place of understanding it.
And I don't want to be so negative. I'm amazed at the problems that are getting solved. We have a client called Boundary, and they're monitoring. And monitoring's always been a test. You test. You go, okay, I'm going to ping that web page. Does it come back? I'm going to do a transaction. Does it come back? Well, we've actually had the technology to, instead of testing an application, to watch every single thing that happens while someone goes in. So I don't have to test whether a web page is up. I can see every single user where they got what they expected. We've had that for about 8 years. The problem is, what do you do with it? You have this huge stream of information coming in about whatever happened to every user, and you can actually say, you, user B, could not use it at 2:03 in the morning on this day, but I couldn't analyze the data, and they've created an app to do that. And it's a big data application, and of course they've gotten a lot of funding to make this happen. I will also tell you they have probably 3 or 4 of the smartest people I've ever met in this space working full time, and we had to apply so much infrastructure and gear underlying it. It was not a general cloud solution. We were talking, hey, can we get faster than SSD drives across the board? I mean, this was a big technical problem getting worked out to solve something that will change the way we can see how people use the systems. I'm not saying it's not getting done or not possible. I am saying that I think a lot of people will say, hey, I can solve this problem for you tomorrow. And the reality is it's still very, very difficult, and it still takes a heavy level of technical expertise in order to implement it. Once you can, though, the results are just phenomenal.
Well, let's try and find a use case by asking the audience. Hands up if you saw that headline, I don't know, maybe, anyway, certainly this year, cloud computing. Probably it said cloud computing and big data, but I actually remember it as cloud computing can cure cancer. See that one? No one saw it. This is not good. I got cancer last year, so I was very interested in this. Cloud computing plus big data can cure cancer. That seems like a simple use case. Even I can process that one. They get all the different sequences of all the different patients who've had all the different things. and run the permutation and give me the
Right.
exact right horrible poison that...
If the data
keeps me going.
starts in the cloud and stays in the cloud, then running the analytics on it, that probably makes sense. If you decide to let the data inside your enterprise, then you cannot push it fast enough into any of the cloud to do the computation.
You can see what I'm fishing for here. I really want a headline that you will go away with from Cloud Expo saying cloud computing can cure cancer. Come on, work with me here. Aaron.
I don't think cloud computing really solves much of anything.
Oh,
It's not a
great.
cloud computing provider. But what I would say
There's a takeaway.
Your board's going to be upset.
yeah, absolutely. They always are. So, but what I would say, though, is that people and their ideas and the advent of what's happening with cloud computing, the access to data, the access to information, the access to infrastructure to support the data that you're storing and that you're wanting to retain and evaluate. But it starts with the people and the ideas that they have, and it's the access of them for them to, it's the accessibility to those that are going to change and cure cancer or do anything else. I think this panel inadvertently answered your original question, should a company hire a CAO? Absolutely not. Not right now for most companies, and the reason for that is it starts at your CIO, and I apologize, there's one of you in the audience, but it starts at your CIO, your CTO of what data is available to the organization today, and then it goes to your other executive team members, what data do we need to be successful? And it's a commitment from that entire team of how will we use this data to drive our business, and then it goes back to the CTO and the CIO, how are we going to collect and store and retain that information? Eventually you may bring in a CAO, but until businesses commit to what they're going to do with data and the type of data they want to evaluate, which a CAO shouldn't be solving for them. It's a commitment from the entire organization, the entire executive team. So I think that we've inadvertently, just the discourse in this panel is telling you that the time for CAOs may not be right now. It actually starts with how do we envision what a CAO ultimately brings to the organization that we don't have the power to bring within the leadership and the teams that we have within our company today.
All right, well, I've got a very...
May I
Praveen.
suggest something? I don't think we need a CAO in enterprises. We need a chief analytics mentor who can go in and really educate business, who can educate a business division on how to analyze information that they already have and make just use of it to...
But that suggests it's a transferable skill, Praveen, though it seems to be
it's not a transferable skill. So
but I mean, from company to company.
In some ways, what my company is doing, we go in and actually really create evidence of success. All right, you got all this data, let's bite small. Let's look at the next 4 months and take a simple use case and really prove to ourselves and the rest of the management that there is value here. So every CEO you speak to in Fortune 500, they all feel that there is tremendous intelligence lurking, but they don't have confidence in who is going to be able to get this intelligence out and turn it into profits for the company or growth for the company.
The question is now, what do we do with the data? But you start with, what am I trying to change today? That question, CIO cannot answer. The CSO, your strategy office, and CEO needs to answer.
Well, we know we're trying to create value. We can put it under that.
So it really comes from there. When you start with that, then it starts small. I really agree with you. Like, start small, start with the data that you already have, or add a new source of data before hiring in completely a CIO that will set in the whole bunch of data and new analytics.
I suppose what we were edging towards there when we were talking that, does every organization possess data of value that they have not recognized is of value? That's really the takeaway that I think we're heading towards, in which case it will have to be addressed. It's like you are sitting on oil, yes, that's being the analogy, and somebody says you don't understand. Your price of your house could be 10 times, but you still have to get it out. But the oil is there. So I just want to check, do we really all agree, all 6 of you, which would be an amazing feat, that most organizations are sitting on vast quantities of data that has some value, even if, as Treb says, it's going to take till well past 2017, in his view, to extract it.
And I really think about, as we heard across the board, and I look at the difference between the people who are successful in this and the ones who are struggling. And the ones who are successful said, I have access to get data, and how am I going to access that? So when we look at Google or Splunk or the Boundary, they said, here's something that's out there, and I'm going to bring that data in a way that I can then regurgitate things that will give me answers. I have yet to see anybody sitting on a pile of existing data today that wasn't designed to be handled in a big data fashion and suddenly be gleaning information. That's where, oh, I've got all this data, but I interact with customers every day. I have visitors to my website every day. I have information coming off my systems every day. If I could collect that new, and it's going to take patience because you got to put it in a way that I can then regurgitate it back out, then we're seeing some super successful people doing that because they designed it from day one. So I think the ability to take data and get it, but to say it's already sitting there in you know, some archive or something, and I can grab, I think it's going to be a much tougher one in the next few years until the tools start getting much more sophisticated.
I disagree. I think the technologies to do predictive analysis have really are coming of age. And you can take existing data and do much better predictive analytics today. We went to a tier 1 credit card company, and we were able to bring down their false positive for fraud, you know, low in about 4 months. The system, we started engagement 4 months ago. I got an email this morning. It was put in production.
So there's a term for that. Gartner coined a term for it. It's called dark data.
Dark data.
Yes, 60% of in their survey, they found 60% of the enterprises believe they can make most by just analyzing the data they already collect, have not looked at.
Yeah, not looked at. Well,
there's a very large search company not too far from here. There's a group of 10 people, and I haven't signed an NDA with them. There's a group of 10 people, and one of those 10 is a grandmaster.
a chess grandmaster.
A chess grandmaster. Okay. And this group goes around inside the company and applies machine learning at a massive scale to each property. Property is a web property. And it's producing tremendous results. I'll not say anything more.
So I'll say one thing about this. We don't have a lot of time left, but I think the point is that there's a lot of data that's in relational databases today. And there's new streaming data that's coming into an enterprise or an organization. And trying to mix those data and trying to get value out of the existing data that's been built with existing infrastructure and get new meaning and new types of discovery and new ROI from that, mixing it with the new streaming data, because there's new data types out there, is really a lot of things going on. For example, one of the largest telco carriers in the world have hired us because they're coming up with a new paradigm to trade money via text messaging. And that is a real-time type of problem set to become the new bank in third world countries where the banking systems are not stable. So that is a use case where they're taking existing data, the customer data that's in relational databases, and they're trying to use the new real-time data, geolocation type of data, which is unstructured data, and trying to figure out the patterns, who's the power users, what's going on for money laundering, fraud detection, especially in nations like in Africa, where there's a lot of Somalian kind of problems over there for money laundering. So those are real application use cases where big data and the tools that actually enable them are going to add value. So these are real use cases where you're using the data that's there, silos of huge data that could add more value if you bring it to life with the new tools and the new problem sets and the new smart data scientists of tomorrow.
All right, well, as you say, we are running out of time, but let's just end in a very simple and practical way that will make me a gazillionaire, which is to say, so Rags's idea via, was it Gartner, was that, never mind this Cloud Expo, I start Dark Data Expo, which I like. Dark Data Expo, millions ago. But what else should I start in this? So Praveen, let's start with you. Give me a new conference, please, in about the next 10 seconds. Just name it.
Predictive Analytics.
Predictive Analytics Expo, PA. Yeah, that could work. Aaron?
Well, I'm watching the clock as the seconds are going by, and I don't have my idea yet. I'm going to pass and come back to me.
Pass and come back to. Well, I've given you Dark Data Expo. You think it could work?
It will work.
Yes. Jay?
New meaning from your data.
New meaning from your data expo. I hope you don't run your branding.
No, I don't.
Wow.
Believe me, that was a bad marketing. That's where I'm going.
Ryan.
Yeah, we're a big fan of local clouds, but I also believe, to your earlier point, that big data and cloud computing enables the curing of cancer through this process.
Cure Cancer
these are tools.
Expo. Cure Cancer Expo. I see my fortune.
Right here.
Treb, I hesitate to ask you, so I'll just stand my distance.
You're going to be on
It'll be
Yeah,
like
I always say I don't have to come
Horse
up with a
Shit
poem. It's not big data. I think big data is going to be what everybody want to keep talking about for a few years. But I would start today with big data how.
Big data how? Oh, well, that's a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, big
You
data.
know, how do we actually do this?
Big data how?
Yeah.
We'll let you off the hook, Aaron, because that's not a bad one. Big data how? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As you applaud, I will remind you, you've been listening to Treb Ryan, Chief Strategy Officer at Dimension Data. Keep it going. Brian Donaghy, CEO of Appcore. Jarrell, CEO of Objectivity. Srinivasan, Director of Product Management at Symantec. Aaron Hollobaugh, VP of Marcom at Hostway. And Praveen Kankariya, you've got to really keep it going, founder and CEO of Impetus Technologies. That's the last of the power panels. This is a complex topic. I can tell just from the bemused faces. So obviously we're good for the next 24 years. So we'll just leave it as Big Data Expo. How about that? Thank you so much, audience. Thank you for watching us out there on the World Wide Web. Let's get on with the next part.